The WNBA CBA negotiations are getting nowhere.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everyone, welcome into Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Kahleah Butler. Joined alongside me is Sophia Jones, my co-host. We're going to go over a couple of things today. We're going to get into the Seattle Storm's free agency as well as the Phoenix Mercury. But first things first, we all know that the CBA negotiation deadline is quickly approaching. It is supposed to be on October 31st. However, yesterday, the WNBA offered the Women's National Basketball Players Association a 30-day extension to continue negotiations on a new collective bargaining agreement. Per ESPN, the players would only accept an extension under the right circumstances, but those circumstances at this moment do not exist. And if both sides cannot agree to an extension, or the extension comes and goes without another extension or a new deal, the next step would be a work stoppage. And at that point, all league business would cease. Players would not even be able to access practice facilities, but negotiations would continue. So as of right now, there's an offer for a 30-day extension, but we don't know if the players have accepted that extension just yet. So it's still a gray area, which seems like it's been this entire CBA negotiation.
Exactly. It's one side wants one thing and another side wants another. They're both offering deals with what they want, but then neither side is really accepting these propositions. And I think for the WNBA Players Association to not accept an extension, I think that it basically is them saying these are our demands, this is what we want, and we're not going to compromise. Because with an extension, there's more dialogue and to go back and forth. There's more room for conversation. But these players are probably like, what more do we need to talk about? We've already said A, B, and C. It's very clear what we want, and specifically, it's about the league revenues and shares. So the Players Union wants to propose a system in which players' salaries are tied directly to WNBA business, where salary increases are linked to a percentage of revenue generated by the league. But the league, the WNBA, has proposed a revenue sharing system similar to what is currently in its CBA, which has a fixed salary cap and additional uncapped revenue sharing, but only if league revenue exceeds certain targets. So both scenarios, there are player pay increases, but the players union is essentially one that's looking more long term to coincide with the growth of the league. And I think this is what they're really hung up about. And again, I think the WNBA Players Association not yet accepting this extension is an indication that what they said is what they said.
Exactly. What they said is what they said. And Napheesa Collier said that if the WNBA players back down in the CBA talks, it would hurt women's sports. And I agree with her because the WNBA has been at the forefront of the growth of women's sports. It hasn't just been basketball. It's been soccer, as I've mentioned, lacrosse, softball. There's so many other sports that are benefiting from the WNBA and its players making strides to show that women's sports are valued, people are attending games, and that they deserve to be paid what they are owed. And another interesting point is there is a WNBA spokesperson who I'm going to get to how I feel about the spokesperson word in a moment, but quote, we have been negotiating with the Players Association in good faith and with urgency for several months with the goal of finalizing a new collective bargaining agreement as quickly as possible. Throughout this process, we have been clear that our top priority is reaching a new collective bargaining agreement that addresses players' asks for significant increases in pay, benefits, and enhancements to their experience while ensuring the long-term growth and success of the league and its teams. We urge the Players Association to spend less time disseminating public misinformation and more time joining us in constructive engagement across the table, end quote. Those are very strong words to not apply a face to. I believe if you are a WNBA spokesperson who is claiming that these players are disseminating public misinformation and not joining in on any constructive engagement across the table, I believe you need to show your face in that situation. So we know exactly who it's coming from, and people can do their research as to, oh, who is this person that is stating this? Is there truth to this? Because on the other side, Napheesa Collier made it very clear. She had receipts. She had media in front of her. People are asking questions, taking notes. There was a face to the league and, the Players Association for somebody to look to and be like, oh, what does Napheesa have to say of this? What are her thoughts? What are her opinions? Let's do research on this. I believe if you're going to make such strong statements that you have to put a face to it, especially now that you're offering this extension and then saying that, oh, well, the players aren't agreeing with us. Okay, well, who are you? Like, what role do you play in this? So that everybody is aware of the situation. But other than that, just the misinformation part, even though Napheesa Collier came with clear receipts, there's not an agreement happening anytime soon.
I agree. And I'm in agreement with your point as well with this anonymous WNBA spokesperson. Napheesa Collier, every single one of the WNBA players, when they have voiced what they're looking for in these CBA negotiations, they've said it in very public spaces. Napheesa Collier's exit interview, the recent Glamour magazine that came out that featured a couple players, the Sabally's, Fee, Lexi Hull. So they're doing it in these public spaces. And again, they're just laying out A, B, and C what they're looking for. But it doesn't appear that there's been the same level of transparency by the league in the WNBA. We've seen Kathy make her statements. I think it was before game one of the finals, I believe. But other than that, we haven't heard much from her again. And I feel like a lot of the language that WNBA spokespeople are using in this whole negotiation process is they're trying to flip it on the players, where that quote at the end that you mentioned with less time disseminating public misinformation, more time joining us in constructive engagement across the table. They're basically saying, oh, we're trying to make something happen, but the players, they're the ones that are being in agreement. I think that's how it's coming across, which is
Mhm.
another thing that I find interesting because tensions are already extremely high between the Players Association and the league. And I don't think it would be beneficial to either parties for that to just continue to get worse. And they continue to call each other out. But it's very interesting the language that is used. Again, just trying to flip it on to the players because I think the WNBA knows that the general public consensus is in support of the players.
Absolutely. And there has to be accountability on both ends, right? If there is something that the players aren't sharing, let's say, that needs to be made clear. They need to take accountability for if there is any misinformation out there. On the other side, the association also needs to identify if they've put any misinformation out there or are trying to paint a negative picture around the players so that people agree with them. That's where the accountability factor comes in. However, I think the WNPA made an interesting post as well on Instagram where they blacked out outlines of players and there's a bunch of fans around and they captioned it, who's missing these moments wouldn't be possible without the players, which is absolutely true. The players are the reason that we're tuning in to watch these games, why people are buying tickets, jersey sales, all of the above, and they absolutely deserve a portion of that revenue. I think Shanae Agumbuke made a really interesting point as of late too when Sue Bird was interviewing her, saying, when Shanae and Sue Bird were in the league, they were just doing it because they really loved basketball. It was more of an opportunity rather than a paycheck, which is a very valid point. And they fought really hard to get to where they even are in these CBA negotiations now that this new wave of players, when you have some of the young faces, when you have the faces of the league now with a Napheesa, with a Brianna Stora, with a Asia Wilson, now they're showing value. now you have to pay them for what their value is. And that's all that they're asking for. And there's this fixed mindset, in my opinion, from the league that, oh, well, you guys should just get paid this right now because this is how much you're making right now. The point is that there's a clear growth and there's expansion teams coming up. There's going to be more revenue in that. It should be a clear answer that, you know, $1 million contract for a Caitlin Clark isn't unreasonable because she's brought in hundreds and thousands or millions of dollars to the WNBA and she is gaining none of that. That's not fair in any situation.
I agree. Again, it's like I think a couple episodes I did my little graph explanation where the league wants y equals x. They want like a diagonal line in a fixed rate, but the league is essentially growing at y equals x squared, so much more steep of an increase. And the players want something that matches that incline more, which I think is 100% reasonable because they're the reason why that the league is growing, and so that needs to be reflected in their salaries.
Absolutely. You know, we wouldn't have our jobs if the WNBA didn't exist. And honestly, if I'm not on the sidelines for next season, I'm going to be upset about it. But coming up, we're going to talk about the Seattle Storm's free agency. One of the tools that help me make a big difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quote is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer. So no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. I love how Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox so no customer gets left behind. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over and at no extra charge. No missed calls, no missed customers. Okay, continuing our free agency talks, we have landed on the Seattle Storm, who are going to have another very interesting free agency as some of the teams that we had talked about yesterday, because basically the entire roster is an unrestricted free agent. You have Gabby Williams, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Nneka Ogwumike, Brittany Sykes, Ezzy I'm so sorry, Magabor, Katie Lou Samuelson, Erica Wheeler, and Tiffany Mitchell are all going to be unrestricted. Under contract are Lexi Brown, Dominique Malunga, who is also having some issues with her contract due to some overseas, let's call them miscommunications, Jordan Horston and Nika Mule. Sophia, when your entire roster and basically all your players that actually played and got you on a run this season are going to be unrestricted free agents. However, you hire a new coach. What do you see this Seattle Storm team doing in free agency?
I really couldn't say. I mean, I think in comparison to the other teams that we've covered so far, Seattle definitely does have the most unrestricted free agents. And I mean, 1 through 6, 6 being the sixth woman that comes off the bench and Erica Wheeler, all unrestricted free agents. For Seattle, one thing that was very apparent to me with them last season was they didn't have a ton of depth. And
Mm.
so that's where I think either you're going to bank on keeping these players and maybe add more pieces, or are you going to scrap the entire thing? I know there's there's a little bit of like the joke in the NBA with a team like the Los Angeles Clippers because they have like a lot of the old veterans on there and they're calling it like the unction. That's a little bit what the Seattle Storm were like this past season. All extremely talented, high end players. I mean, you have 4 all-stars on there. But the Seattle Storm team, you can definitely say that they underachieved this past season, and we saw them part ways with Noel Quinn. Seattle general manager Talisa Ree told ESPN that, quote, "I think we're looking for a leader, someone who can manage a group and really establish a new identity." She said that about the new head coach, Sonia Raman. And establish new identity is the part that kind of sends a little bit of flares in my mind, because similar to what we were talking about with the New York Liberty, it would be surprising if you're looking at rebuilding a team and having that new identity, but keeping the same exact roster.
Yes, that's what we were talking about with the Liberty yesterday. If you're going to dismantle, your coaching staff per se, have a new head coach come in, but you're expecting to keep the same team and expect a significant change in year one of Sonia Raman coming in and being a head coach for the WNBA. Those are very high expectations for anyone to achieve. But when you're looking at people that you really want to come back, you want a Diggins to come back, you want a Nneka Ogwumike to come back, and you want Gabby Williams to come back. That's who you just traded for in Jewel Lloyd leaving and bringing Gabby Williams in, who came in very heavily because of her defensive presence. And something so interesting about the Storm this season, too, is they had so many bright lights of, oh, this is a team right here. Like, this is going to be a very difficult team to get past. They have such a fantastic roster. And it's so interesting because when we're talking about all of these teams, we have talked about how wonderful these rosters are, and they really are. It's just something else that is not clicking. But they had such an up and down season, and you can say that they underachieved because they did win some big time games, sure, but at the same time they were incredibly inconsistent. They would have games where they're shooting the lights out of the three, next one they're making maybe 2 threes the whole game. Defensively, they would go on a tear that would run a lot of their offense, and then defensively they shut down. It was just not the same team. They would have a couple of really good games, and then they would have a couple of very bad games as well. So you want to look for that consistency. But again, you have to give Sonia Raman the space to be a head coach in the WNBA and understand how to lead this team. But if you're just expecting that with all the exact same players and maybe not bringing in some youth and more depth, that's going to be a little bit of an unrealistic goal.
Youth and depth are the two main words I would say that the Storm can look at obtaining, especially when you have a player like Dominique Malonga, who hopefully her European club contract gets resolved, so she'll be available to play in this next season. But to 19 years old, you want her to be a part of the franchise for a long time, but you also want players that can hopefully grow around her a little bit. Nika Mule, she was out this last season because she suffered a torn ACL. Could be a young player that would be interested to see her in that dynamic. Same thing with Jordan Horston, another young dynamic player. But you also do need to have that balance with your veterans. So, like a Skylar Diggins, like a Nneka Ogwumike, her nickname is literally Madam President because she has that wisdom and aura to herself. And so I think those are some really key pieces. Gabby Williams is a good, I don't want to say veteran, but she's been around the league long enough to know what's up, but still very young at the same time. She would be a great bridge in between those two groups as well. And with her defense, I think we saw a growth in her game last season that can only continue. But yeah, just those players, I felt like Ezzy Magbigor, sorry, that last name always gets me tongue tied.
You
But
watch me do it.
but she is just coming off of her rookie contract, so she could be a valuable piece. Katie Lou Samuelson was out because of injury. But I think for the Storm, you just really want to search for some kind of stability this offseason to set you up for these years to come, especially with a new head coach. Even last year for the expansion draft, the Golden State Valkyries didn't select anyone from the Seattle Storm, which I felt like was just another indication of the stuff that was surrounding that organization, especially with Jewel Lloyd's departure. So I think you just want to have that stability. It can be with this group, but if the general manager is talking about creating a new identity, I would be surprised if it really does stay the same.
Absolutely. Coming up after this, we'll get into the runner ups in the WNBA, the Phoenix Mercury's free agency.
Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com.
All right. So the mighty Mercury unfortunately didn't make the run in the new 7-game series finals as people may have anticipated. Is that due to roster construction? Let's look at some of the unrestricted free agents that they have this upcoming 2026 free agency. First one's going to be Kahleah Copper, Satou Sabally, Alyssa Thomas, Sammy Whitcomb, and DeWanna Bonner. Those are heavy hitters to have in unrestricted free agency. However, I do anticipate a lot of them wanting to come back. Obviously, you made it that far. You made it to the finals. You have somebody like Alyssa Thomas on the team who players had even said, obviously they all want to win, but Alyssa Thomas is also a leader that you want to win behind as well. Someone similar to an Asia Wilson, you want to rally behind a veteran like that. You want to see her win on top of it. Obviously, you have her fiance, DeWanna Bonner, coming in, leaving the Fever early to come join this team. Maybe didn't have the impact that we thought she could have. But also, you have to give credit for her coming into a system more than halfway through the season and just contributing her part as much as possible. We did see her come through in the finals a couple of times, but when you have a Kahleah Copper, a Satou, Alyssa Thomas, Sammy Whitcomb, who was really impressive during the finals and just the season in general, do you want to keep a lot of them, or do you want to find some fresh faces to hopefully make another playoff push?
Yeah, I would say, again, this is for the Mercury. I think they kind of follow that same format that the Aces and Lynx did, where we probably don't want to change too much. You definitely, high priority has to be Copper, Sabally, and Thomas. They have the option to core one of them. I would look at coring Alyssa Thomas, but you definitely want those people back. And Phoenix actually had very solid depth this past season as well. Even when you're looking at a point guard in Monica Coa-Makani, who she started some games, came off the bench in others, but trade that off with Sammy Whitcomb. That's great depth right there. Kalia Copper is going to continue to improve after her first year in the league. Catherine Westbell, first year in the league as well. She gave some really key minutes down the stretch. Your girl Lexi Held as well. I remember, I think she had a career high against the Valkyries. And I was like, oh, okay, she can hoop for sure.
Listen, Lexi can shoot the ball, y'all. Y'all haven't seen it, but Lexi can shoot the ball incredibly well.
Exactly, but she is just in her first year of the league as well. She'll continue to improve. She had a partially collapsed lung part of the season, which left her out. So can only imagine that if she has a full season under her belt, that'll improve. So the Phoenix Mercury have a lot of really good things to work with. Kalani Brown is under contract. I was very impressed with Kalani Brown in that very last game of the finals, game 4, where she hadn't really seen many minutes at all during the playoffs, but she came in and really did her job in what she was asked to do, play some very clutch minutes. But Phoenix Mercury has always been regarded as one of the highest rated franchises in the league. Players love Phoenix. They like how it's run, the management. Sabally said during the finals that I think we have really good things going on here. People are less inclined to leave the spot just because of the resources and the comfort that comes with this franchise, but also truly the culture. And I think that's a huge reason why we won't see a ton of movement from the Mercury. Maybe just, and I can definitely see more players wanting to explore and look to see if Phoenix has any room for them.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it'd be more difficult for players to leave Phoenix than having to bring people in. Truthfully, both would be. I don't think anybody really wants to leave Phoenix. They have a good thing going. As you just stated, they love the culture. Everybody seems to love each other. You're in Phoenix, Arizona. That's not a bad place to be. Everything about it, they have good facilities. Everything about it is good. And they're probably going to have to try and shoo players away. Be like, no, we don't have room for you guys. It seems like everybody would really want to go there. It'd be hard to not sell somebody on going to the Phoenix Mercury, especially with the run that they had this season. And I think another part is they really like Nate Tibbetts as well. And he is a vibe. I'm not gonna lie. Anytime I have talked to him, he is just a really cool person. And I remember to the point of bringing up Lexi Held. I was her manager while she was at DePaul. And I remember interviewing Lexi before she had even got to the WNBA. I literally interviewed her a couple of months before she had signed a contract with Phoenix. And she was like, yeah, she had got cut from the Sky training camp roster like a couple of years ago now. She was having a really good time playing overseas. And I don't even know if she anticipated this WNBA contract to come up. And she was so excited about it, so deserving of it. But I remember talking to her after they played the Sky. And she was just saying how much she enjoyed being there. And she just looked so light and happy. Like Lexi has always been a very chill, calm person, but she had this different level of just seeming centered to her. And I believe a lot of that was because of the environment that she had at Phoenix. And I remember she had looked at Doug Bruno was there and a couple of other coaches. And immediately she was like, oh, have you guys met Nate yet? And I think that speaks volumes. If you want your former coaches to meet your current coach, you're not in the corner whispering to them about like, I don't actually like it here, like blah, blah, blah. You're like, no, I want you guys to meet him. I think that shows a lot about the culture that they're creating at Phoenix. And I'm very curious to see what they're going to be capable of doing in this 2026 season. But even you mentioned their depth was pretty good. I think it was more just showing up at the right times, especially in the finals. But we've said this for other teams. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You just kind of got to get down to the nitty-gritty things of how do we blend better together?
Exactly. And even with like the depth, they have a luxury of having some young players in that depth playing significant minutes. When we talk about Lexi Held or Monica Koamakani, for players like that, they'll continue to develop and get better, and they'll be restricted free agents, I believe, so or reserved, and you can just keep them under your wing, continue to develop them, and hope that they'll still continue to embrace the Phoenix Mercury culture. I think that for the Mercury as well, when you did see a little bit of or when the team wasn't running as fluidly as it should have, it was on the offensive end. They have a very physical, defensive, intense identity, but offensively, there were still moments where they could have improved. That was our whole thing. I felt like we kept repeating during our WNBA finals talks where they would just go through lulls in the offense. So continue to surround AT with good pieces. Make sure you have Copper and Sabally. Those are great prolific scorers right there. And then just for players like Held or Akoa Makani, even Westbeld, just develop them, have them ready to accept their roles, especially they can put some points on the board, which is what Phoenix will need, I think, this upcoming season to really refine the good things that they have going on.
Listen, if next season AT starts shooting the three, it's over with for everyone. We still have the Washington Mystics to cover, but we will be back tomorrow to get into their free agency and any other CBA